Shut up and sit down.
Rockhampton, or Rocky to the locals, is the east coast gateway to the tropics. It sits on the Tropic of Capricorn. It has a similar population as Darwin and was established some 70 years after Sydney. It sits on the Fitzroy River, which drains the largest river system in Australia that flows into the Pacific. The city is some 100 kilometres inland, and on a major river system it allows yachts to sail all the way in. It's similar in style to other large towns such as Bundaberg, Brisbane, Grafton and Kempsey, which I'm guessing were all modelled on London. There is a botanical gardens and a zoo, which really did make my day. There are koalas, kangaroos and dingoes, emus and a massive wetland full of bird life. There's a number of private boarding schools, the founding campus of Central Queensland University, a large rail museum and a sizable hospital. On the other side of town is the depressed area of Depot Hill. I'm not sure what's going on here. Many of the buildings look so old. I imagine that the local council is preventing further development, or maybe it's been zoned flood area, but then the building should have long washed away by now, or maybe it's been deliberately rezoned for industrial purposes. The climate during the winter months is similar to spring and autumn in Sydney, with the occasional winter snap. The sun is still quite hot as anything all year round, which means that the locals take to exercising at dusk. I can't fault them, as my scalp keeps getting sunburnt. I think I need to get myself a foldable hat. Comment your suggestions below. Located on the coast is Rockhampton's sibling city of Yeppoon. It's a fishing village, while further down the coast is a holiday retreat at Emu Park. During the winter month, the weather was so absolutely spectacular, and on the gorgeous sunny afternoon, I just had to enjoy some of the local fish and chips, although it tasted more like chicken. Riding to Bundaberg was all smooth. Only a few drops of rain to spoil an otherwise boring ride on the highway. The M1 to a flooded Gympie was as close to my cousin as I was going to come. The N1 turned into the A1 and multiple lanes reduced into a single lane in each direction. Main highways are just dull and boring for motorcyclists, but with over 500 kilometres to make in a day, I wasn't game to take the back roads. Bundaberg sits on the Burnett River and is surrounded by sugarcane. It's a much larger town than I was expecting. I had thought that the town would have been taken over by Bundaberg rum. I only occasionally saw the polar bear. The Google shortcut out of town was much more dramatic. It had me on the road to 1720, which the sign at Bundaberg said was closed. But for some reason I decided to continue with the Google direction, as the road following the train line was superb. Then in the corner of my eye I glimpsed the sign, Water Over Road. It took a moment for it to click in, then that TikTok song just ran out in my head as I slammed on the brakes. I managed to find enough bitumen to slow the bike down before hitting the mud washed up on the embankment. I saw that the water was only a few inches deep, so I managed to get to the other side. Once there, I noticed a very old postie owned by a farmer swimming in the creek with his 2 dogs. I guess he was there for the local show of people driving far too fast into the creek. Thank God I learnt to read, and F Queensland for not dropping the speed limit over their weirs. The farmer was kind enough to let me know that the only way back to the highway was through the Warrego National Park. Yay, another dirt road. And without a 4G connection, I wasn't able to report the road closure to Google. I saw several other victims of Google shortcuts. With this detour, Google had left me so very close of running the tank dry. I wound up in Rockhampton with about 300 millilitres of petrol left. You can Google and see that my bike takes 17 litres to the brim, and with that I now know that the most efficient speed of the bike is about 110 kilometres per hour. The accommodation is a good sized room with an ensuite hosted by a lovely old couple. They're a pair of empty nesters chasing after the grandkids. They have an old Holden under the tarp with the disintegrating tyres. If anybody wants an old Holden for about 15 or 20 grand, then I found you one, although it seems commonplace up here for an old car to be under the house. This is a country town full of country people. I think I've finally left that long suburbia along the east coast from Sydney. For example, if the power goes out over the weekend, then you're hard pressed trying to find an electrician on short notice who is willing to come out. And for some reason the bread and milk has use by dates over about 2 weeks. I wonder about the impact of the preservatives on all those simple country folk. The front tyre, as expected, does slightly improve steering stability around corners but sacrifices braking. For the road, I think that a larger front tyre is better. I don't need to race into corners but often need to brake suddenly. I think at this stage I'll go back to the 130 when this one wears out. I'll monitor it over the next 10,000 kilometres and let you know how it goes. I'm starting to wonder if I should find someone with a four-wheel drive to get me the last 400 kilometres to Throm to the Cape, or whether I should take the bike all the way there. If the bike can only manage 50 to 60 kilometres per hour on dirt, then it's going to take over 2 days to get me there and back. Comment your suggestions below. In a large populated town, I again have access to NBN and a stable 4G connection. I'm now guessing that I'll have decent internet access along the entire journey as long as I stay within a populated areas. The satellite dish is turning into as much of a folly as my swimmers and beach towel. Changing the micro SD card for the bike cameras looks to have done the trick. Maybe I should have taken the little victories as they come and accept my failures at the same time. Or possibly I should just redefine success and tell everyone that I'm helping Elon get to Mars. Rockhampton is a large country town full of proud locals. It's quite comfortable. It has a large coastline and has many good public amenities. I look at the large amount of boarding schools and realise that many farmers sent their kids here to meet everybody. Reading the graffiti on the wall, some of the locals refer to Rockhampton as a paper town with paper houses and paper people. Everything is uglier up close. It's an interesting comment, as many of the houses do lack insulation, but I can't help thinking that their expectations of the rest of the world is a little too high. The rain and cold weather has followed me into the tropics, and I can only imagine how this pre-winter cold snap is freezing everybody back home. I also have more followers on Google Maps than I do YouTube, so remember to hit that subscribe button so I don't think that YouTube is rigged. Next stop is Mackay via Emerald. Why? Because I'm a sucker for punishment. I didn't come all this way to allow parts of the country to pass me by, so I'll go that extra mile to see how much of this country I can see first time around. And on a motorcycle, it's best to avoid the highways. Thanks for following my adventures around Australia, and remember to go out there and do something to enjoy your day.